Well, welcome back, class. This is Mr. Goldsman, and this is Art 1. And we're in the middle of a shading week. We just got done with the value scale in the last lesson, where you were looking at steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, the whole goal is to take those values that you now know how to use, how to put them down, and start to put them down in a way so that you can make your stuff pop out. So you're trying to make your drawings pop. I'm going to pause this just for a second. All right. So as you can make stuff pop, down the road a little bit, we're going to try to get you to get an eye to pop like this, where it has a lot of the lights and darks in it. So this is a lesson we're going to do, hopefully, when you come back to class, is doing this large eye. But before you can do this, you need to do a value scale, and you need to do a box and a ball. Because if you look at the ball shape here, it's kind of like the shape of an eye. And the box is really important to learn some basic values and shadows. So I'm going to put this aside. If you could take your sheet of paper, this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and let's just fold this in half. So as we fold it in half like this, that works pretty good. And I'm going to be drawing on the top half. I might want to fold it this way, so then it's doubled up a little bit. So that's good. And now I can zoom in a little bit. So this is the top half of my sheet. Okay, it's folded like this. So when I open it, I'm going to do the box here and the ball down there. So this sheet, I'm just going to label box and ball. I'm going to put my name on it. And the hour, I'm just going to choose second hour again, just because that's what I've been doing. All right, so now the whole idea with this is that we're going to put in a pretty good sized box, a little bit bigger than what we have been doing in the drawing lessons. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this about this size. And if you take a look at that box, that's almost 4 fingers across. So you could do it 3 fingers or 4 fingers across. So I'm going to start out with 2 dots pretty far apart, maybe almost 4 fingers. That's pretty good, maybe just a little bit less than that. So you're going to start with your 2 dots that are going to be straight across from each other. And then I'm going to go 1 finger thickness here, and I'm going to put a dot below and a dot above. So there's about 1 finger thickness there. So this is a lot closer together than that, because again, when you do this box and you squish the box when you foreshorten it, it's going to look like that. All right, and we'll talk about some of the values and things on here in a minute. So I'm going to put in my lines for northeast, northwest, northeast, and northwest. Those lines are the same lines that you were using when you were doing your directional lines earlier in some of your earlier drawings. And if you remember, this is a handout here for the northeast and the northwest. It's the same thing over and over and over. We just do it a little bit differently each time as we draw different things. Okay, so this box, I'm going to come straight down, straight down, straight down, northeast, northwest. So it's just a simple box, and I can square it up a little bit as I'm working with it here. That looks pretty good. It's difficult to draw a good box, actually. It's harder than it looks. All right, so as I look at this box, here's my little block. I can see that the light source on this is mainly coming from this side. So I'm going to change up my light source. It's coming from this side. You can see that there's a little bit more light on the top. There's light here. But if you look at this side here on the right, it's shadowed more. And it's a little bit darker right along this edge here than it is going back. So I'm going to put my light source from the right-hand side, or the left-hand side this time. So I'm going to put a little arrow over there for now, just to remind me. Now, as I go in here a little bit closer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build up some values in this. And I want to spend quite a while putting these shadows in. So if my light is coming from the left-hand side, this side over here is going to be quite a bit darker. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to start right at that top edge. And I'm going to shadow this. And see, now I can start to number these values then in a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being light, really light, and 10 being really, really dark. And I'm just using here my Ticonderoga, and I will probably add a little bit of darker with my layout pencil. So I'm going to shade that side, and then I'm going to shade up and down like this. And it's really, really important that you learn how to shade a box and a ball. It's really, really important that you learn to control these values, because a face is a lot like a box with some rounded portions on it. Now, a lot of people think a head is a circle, but it's really more of a boxy shape than it is just a circle. All right, now as I'm looking at this, the light's coming from here. You can see it's a little bit darker on this edge and this edge, where the light from here meets the dark from here. It's usually a little bit darker right there. Now I'm going to take this pencil and I'm going to just darken that up a touch right along that edge. And you can make this, quite a bit darker. Sometimes people will take that all the way to a 10. I'm not going to go quite that dark. I'm going to take this right along that edge, maybe to an 8 or a 9. And by an 8 or a 9, if you're wondering what I mean by that, if you go back to that value scale that we just did, in the last lesson, and you look at that darkness of the 8 and the darkness of the 9, you can see that those are reference guides now. That value scale becomes a reference for you. So now I'm going to put in some of these shadows here as it comes down. It's a strange thing with a box when you really look at it. And you could set up a box, especially if it's a white box. You could put a light source on it, maybe on your desk or in your bedroom somewhere. And you can look at it and see what's actually really going on with that box. What is happening in those values? Well, let me tell you, what's happening in the values is the light is coming down and it's going to bounce around here. It's going to hit the tabletop and it's going to bounce back up here. And this back part of the box right here is going to be a little bit lighter than the front part over here. So I'm going to make this just a touch darker yet right here. And then as it comes over to this back corner, it's going to get a little bit lighter. It's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Not to a 1 or anything, but that's going to go maybe to a 5. Okay, I'm going to pause this a second and grab my value scale. All right, I'm back. Here's my value scale that I had from before. Let's look at this sideways because I'm enlarged and they're pretty good. Okay, so this goes all the way to a 10 here. I'm not to a 10 or I'm not that dark. But as it comes over here, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And if I would take this value scale, let's just kind of look at this. If I would take this value scale, let's me back out of here a little bit. And you're looking at the lighter part here, you're going maybe to a 4 right there. All right, that's maybe about a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then up here, we're going maybe to an 8 or a 9. Maybe 8 or 9 right there. So it gets a little bit lighter as it goes back. All right, so that's important to know. And you can look at a value scale and you can check out your values against it. Now, what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to put just a little bit of value across the top here, because the light is mostly going to be coming from the side. I want this light coming from mostly from the side, not from the top. So I'm going to put a little bit of value across the top here. And I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to rub it a little bit there. And I'm going to clean this up. I want to keep this part of the value there pretty much a 1. So there's a 1 versus a 2 versus an 8 maybe, and then it comes down to a 4. So those are some of the values that you can see there. And that's just learning to control those a little bit. Okay, so now I have my box pretty well shaded in, and I want to do some of the background stuff. So I'm going to take a line here, and I'm going to take it just down at an angle, just very slightly. It's almost straight across, because this light is coming almost straight across. And I'm going to throw a cast shadow in here. This cast shadow that I do, I want this to be quite dark. And just so that you can see it on here a little bit easier, so that you can see it on the video, I'm going to use this darker pencil. And I'm going to shade this in all the way down here to a 10, because I want there to be really good contrast. Now what contrast means is light versus dark. You want really, really strong contrast. So I'm going to take the shadow out around that corner a little bit. Like this. And as that shadow goes out, it's going to get a little bit lighter and lighter and lighter. I'm going to just let that fade out to get a little bit lighter and lighter and lighter as that goes out. Because as the intensity of the light gets further away from it, it's going to fade in that shadow some. Okay, so see how that looks like right there. And then I might take that shadow up just a little bit higher. That's good. I'm going to move this line out of there because I was going to use that for the shadow, but that's just a little bit, that's a little bit too high. I'm going to take that up just a touch more yet. Sometimes I make some changes as I'm working and it just doesn't look right, and that's better. Okay, now I'm going to put a line across here where the tabletop would be, and I'm going to kind of separate that box. I could go like right in the middle, or I could go a little bit higher or a little bit lower. But that's where I want that tabletop to look like it's going across. So now this box is starting to pop out. This side right here is popping. This down here, shadow looks good. But see right here, I have a 1 versus like a 2 right there. That's not very dark. Over here, I have a 2 versus a 1. But over here, I have a 1 versus a 1, 1 versus a 1, 1 versus a 1. And the only thing that's showing the difference between those is that line. So what I want to do is I want to put some shadows in the background. Now, whenever you're looking at drawings, or if you're looking at movies even, a lot of times what they do is where areas are light, they'll put darker backgrounds to make them pop out. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to take my pencil in the background behind this box right there, where the box is quite light. I'm going to make this a little bit darker. Now I don't want to take this to a 10 or anything. I want to take that maybe, and I say take it to a value, and I'm going to rub it with my finger a little bit too. I'm going to take that maybe to a 4. And then down here, I'm going to put some shadow, and I'm going to go a little different direction right there. And this will go up and down. And I'm going to shadow that background there a little bit. I'm just going to let it fade out as it goes. Just let it fade out. You don't have to do it all the way to the edge of your paper. And if you have a couple different pencils, if you have a softer one and a harder one, you can use them one after the other here. That works pretty good. So I'm going to put some shadows in that background. And then I'll rub it a little bit. You can rub it with your finger. See how that really helps to make this box pop. When you put in the background really, really helps that box to pop right there. All right, and then I'm going to carry this over here in the background. I'm going to put some shadows back there, and you can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can go different directions with it. That works pretty well. You can use the side of your pencil. That works pretty well. You can rub that out with your finger. That works pretty well. So I'm trying to show the back of that ball right there, that edge, and show a contrast. Again, a contrast is a difference between lights and darks. So I'm trying to show the contrast here. This is maybe a 3.5 or a 4 versus a 2. This is a 4 versus a 1. This back here is getting a little bit lighter. And when it comes around this edge, I'm just going to lighten this up a little bit. Because if that box is dark in the corner right there, I don't want to put a really dark background. Because if you put the dark background behind it, it will swallow it. You won't be able to see it. So I'm going to use my finger here and I'm going to rub a little bit. So where this is dark, I want to keep that a little lighter. So that gives you the contrast again. And I'm almost done with this. All that I'm going to do is in the front, I'm going to put in a value here of maybe a 2. Just to show where the front of that box is, because I don't want it to be 1 against a 1. I want it to have a little value in the front. And sometimes you can even make this up a little bit. As you're doing your drawings, I could put a little bit of value right back there too. And that helps quite a bit. And there's my box of the box and ball assignment. And if you want to take a little more time and clean this up. Now, as always, you can stop and pause this from what you're doing and continue. But there's the box part, and this is a lesson for a day on the week of shading. All right, so thank you very much. I'll see you in the next lesson for the bottom half of this to do the ball.